Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Blue Archive reaction. For those who might have noticed immediately and are a little thrown off and have watched a video of mine before, yes, I am standing. This is a standing desk. I usually don't use it, but my back hurts and Unk is getting tired. So you know what? Shut up. Anyway, we got 209, 216, and 228 here. Apparently these use the same motif as Ryoharu, which I've already listened to plenty before in the past. I looped it quite a few times myself just because I enjoyed it so much. But Octopus Soup put these into the comments, and a bunch of people also agreed that I should be listening to these, so I will be doing that today. So I guess without further ado, let's go hear what the Three Musketeers of Ryoharu motif have in store for us, shall we? Let's go. Ooh, we starting strong. Okay. I'm gonna be grooving a little bit more because I have like the leg room to do so. Oh man. Ooh, that was a heavy side chain. Hold on. That's actually really weird. There's a side chain pulling this music down in the song when I'm not hearing a bass note or anything. It just kind of happens. That might be the sub bass getting in the way. See if it happens again. Ooh, that crispy R&B hi-hat feel there. Nice. Ooh, the shift of the snaps too. Interesting. That pattern shift was really weird in like a really good way. It wasn't distracting. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, here we are. Like the on to the off beat. Also, I never heard that bass thing happen again. Well, what a chill song. Okay, after listening back to that, I think that side chaining I thought I was hearing might have just been the way that the synth was structured. It kind of had to like pull into the synth instead of just starting at 100% like a lot of the time they are. So it was probably meant to just kind of scale in a little bit and kind of like slide into that note. But I think honestly that wasn't the best choice there just because it was so distracting in that moment where I was like, why is that happening? It just caught my ear in a weird place. I feel like on a phone it wouldn't have been nearly as noticeable, so something like this probably went by a lot of people's ears without them even noticing, but it was just really noticeable in my headphones, so I was like, wait a minute, what's going on there? For a second there, I thought it might have been attached to like a cymbal swell or something, but then it kept happening after that was gone, so I was very like, wonder what's going on there, but it always happened right as a synth started, a very specific one in that moment, so I think they were just looping a specific chunk of that sample, and it just kind of kept doing it, so maybe something that could have been tweaked a little bit. I think that pulsing in there was maybe intentional, but in my opinion, a little bit aggressive to make it feel quite right. If it was maybe halved in its intensity, it would have been way more like simple to just look over and not worry about it, but it just caught my ear in a bad way. And I, of course, despite loving these songs a lot of the time, sometimes there are things about them where I'm like, don't know if I would have done that, and that's one of them. Not a big thing, very like minor gripe, but nonetheless, I like to mention those because nothing is perfect and nothing has to be, but I don't like to hide my negatives either. Other than that, it was beautiful. I love the R&B elements in there. That bass was really driving the entire track. I love the feel of all of that. Just the energy overall that it brought was very calming, relaxing, and it still had enough to like bring you into the next section. And for a song that is only 2.5 minutes long, it had a lot of movement. It didn't seem to repeat like they usually do, where it starts, has a break in the middle, and then just kind of loops the same part as the first again. That's where a lot of these songs tend to just place themselves. But this one didn't really have much of that. It was pretty different from beginning to the end, even though there was obviously the motif in there playing part in basically the whole thing. It didn't feel like an exact copy paste of the beginning and end, which I expected it to be honest with you. So yeah, that was the first one, and now I'm very interested to hear how this might evolve, or I know, again, using the same motif, it might not be the same song or the same inspiration, the same sound even, but just using the motif is going to be what stitches all these together, so I guess we'll have to figure out what they do to the next one to make that work. Let's go. Okay. All right. We back in that kawaii future bass. This is a much shorter song too. Like that arpeggiation there. Simple, clean, bringing in that motif a little bit more. Kind of keeping everything rooted in that motif. Just short, sweet, and to the point, that one. So I'm kind of curious about where this one might be based in the game, because it's just so short and it also has such a loopable aesthetic to it, where like this is definitely a track that would be like an end screen or something that would loop a few times until it either fades out, or is maybe like a quick menu that otherwise didn't get too much attention and they just needed something simple to run through it. Or I guess I could even hear it as like an emotional beat in between another song as like a bridge inclusion, something that would be specific to that one moment and then just kind of gets out of there and lets the other following song take its place. I don't know where this would place though, because other ones make it pretty clear where they'd be utilized in a game, and this one just doesn't hit any of those notes for me. There's too many options. But as I'm sure we all know from my prior videos, I love that kawaii future bass sound. I love how soft this one was. I mean, that usual tone kind of is soft anyway, but this one didn't overstay its welcome with any of the synths or anything. It was really nice, simple, basic, easy to walk through. It just didn't have anything that built up too much, because I guess you just really don't need it sometimes, and that works really well for something so short and probably meant to be accentual like this. But my favorite part definitely has to be that like soft arpeggiation in the background, just letting that loop. It's just so smooth. That is a very usable, flexible motif, and they used it very well here by just letting it exist, just plopping it in there, and then writing something in the same key over top of it just to create some actual movement on the song rather than it just being that loop. Because honestly, they could have done that and it probably would have sounded just as nice, but having that lead on the top made everything feel a little bit more bright and actually brought you somewhere rather than just kind of letting you exist in this like timeless space of that arpeggiation just going to town. So obviously there's not really much to talk about this one due to it being so short and utilizing that motif that we have heard quite a few times. It's really probably just supposed to be some bridge accent in between a moment in the game, so not too much to discuss there, but I guess we have one more song utilizing this, and let's see how it uses that theme. This one's also longer, so it might be more like the first one. The sound is already kind of more reminiscent of that first. little more jazzy, but like, I don't know, it's almost like the genres of the first and second ones blended together. Ooh. I loves me a soft 8-bit synth, you know, just bring in that square wave. Let me drown in it. Again, very subtle with that motif on this one. You just hear it in the background. Ooh, digging right back into it. There's that synth again. That dip. Yeah. See, here it kind of works. I'll explain that. I'll explain why, but man, I didn't expect to hear that same kind of synth again. This feels like an ending credits kind of sound. Just feels like almost like a lullaby version. All right, I'll explain myself. So as I mentioned, that synth came back for this one. So this doesn't have a credit as to who wrote it, but it's probably Mitsuko again, because this one has that same kind of dip in that synth, and it's only used in that one spot. But again, works much better in this case. I think it's just because of the pace of the song and the surrounding elements, having that lead on the top to support it, and it was acting more as like a root rather than the lead like it was in the first one. So it was not only less noticeable, but it kind of helped scoop into the rest of that lead rather than becoming that lead and making you wonder why there's so much room left in that moment. There were a few spots in there where I don't think it worked as well throughout that chunk, but that's just, you know, gonna happen when you're utilizing something like that dip in a synth. I really do think that this is a good example of how to make that work compared to the first one. It's something that just happens. You'll write a few versions of a song and one will just associate itself better with other aspects in there, and you can throw on whatever you want. But I almost feel like this one was like a variant of the first one that they just utilized later or maybe expanded upon, and it meant to be like an evolution of the first one. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this, and why I think that Mitsuko is probably the composer of both. But much like I talked about in the second one, this one utilized a very soft, subtle version of that overall motif, and just having the arpeggiation underneath it. This one was the most subtle for that arpeggiation, that like creep down the loop of be-do-do-do-do-do, be-do-do-do-do-do. It's so smooth. It's so smooth under here. You don't want to overdo it, obviously, but it just felt so good having it there in this, the slightest bit of presence, and it helped everything connect so well. It brought you through. It felt like a wave in the ocean, you know, like you're just kind of floating there on top of the water and letting, you know, the current take you away. That's what that was doing. It was very similar to how the second one was using it, but it was even more subtle. It felt so much more gentle, and I love that. Whereas again, the first one, it was basically the forefront thing for most of the song. It was right up there on the top in the mix. It was absolutely present, and in both of the other ones, less so, but enough where you're like, oh, it's that, you know, like you weren't losing it in the mix. It was just very subtly caressing the rest of the song. It was a very, very nice touch. Overall, I think I would put 209 as like my favorite for the lead. The main part of the song was the best in my opinion. Number 2 was the best vibes, but number 3 was the best overall experience for me. So like, I just love all three of these for slight different reasons, but there's also things to talk about, like that first one having that weird dip, it just didn't feel right, but this one utilizing that again and making it work. That's what I mean by, like, I have to point out the negative things, because so often there will be moments like this where I'll be listening to two different versions of a song, or a song that's related to another one that I just listened to, and it fixes those little tiny things just slightly, where it's like, that might not have worked, but in the bigger picture of what that was meant to accomplish, it ends up working itself out over time. So that's why I like to bring things up. Negative, positive, doesn't matter. And even if that doesn't happen and nothing really is able to come out of that, what does come out of it is the lesson of maybe what to or to not to do when you're trying to make a song yourself. If any of you guys are producers and working on stuff like that, think about those sorts of things. What helps support a song instead of what just kind of sounds like lost room, because you don't want that to sound too prevalent like in the first one. You want it to sound like an assistant like in that third one. So that's enough yapping out of me. I did enjoy all three of these, as I usually do. I think I've only heard one or two songs out of Blue Archive that I've been like, I'm not a huge fan. For all three of these, I love them for individual reasons, like I said, so I really can't pick a favorite. They're just my favorites in different categories throughout. That second one has the vibes on lock though. But I digress, so if you enjoyed this video and you want to request another set of songs for me to listen to from Blue Archive, or anything else, it can be from any property, any game, any anime, anything, drop it down below and I will do my best to get to it. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to follow me and support me for more, you know how to do all that, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!